Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming back at you with Mannadium, which has historically been one of the more expensive decks in Master Duel. However, we did very recently get the Mannadium selection pack available in the shop, which means this deck is at least a little bit more accessible. Now, granted, it is of course still going to be quite a few unique, URs for this archetype. You got the Reichharts, the Rimhearts, the Starfrost, that's 8. Reichphobias is 10. Calariums is 13. I'll just assume if you're already on tier, you own a Pearl or Rhino. It's also isn't 100% needed anyway. And then the Astrolauds make 15, with the Amritera making 16. So, yeah, that is definitely quite a bit of an ask. It's definitely up there with, like, Hero and Voiceless Voice, honestly, and some other decks that are also notorious for being quite a bit expensive. I think that's one of the main reasons why Mannadium doesn't really see that much play. But I do think that another factor in it is that, especially since the release of Centurion, there are newer and, to a lot of people, more exciting synchro decks out there, right? I think that that's kind of the rap that Mannadium has, that like, oh, it just ends on generic end board pieces, like, oh, the boogeyman of Yu-Gi-Oh! Generic end board pieces, like, God forbid. But, like, with a deck like Mannadium, I think this is a prime example of, like, why generic end board pieces are good, because, like, what are you supposed to end on if you're not ending on, like, Baron de Fleur? The Mannadium deck does have its own in-archetype level 10 synchro Mannadium Primeheart, but it is notorious for being bad to the point that it's literally the only Mannadium card I don't own, and it is one of, like, I think maybe 3, 4 that we're not playing, right? So I think this is kind of my main gripe with the whole generics bad, ban them all argument, is that, like, again, okay, what is Mannadium supposed to do without generic synchros, right? Am I supposed to end on Primeheart turn 1? Like, at this rate, Konami just needs to print, like, better in archetype boss monsters, which they are getting better at doing, I've noticed in recent, like, OCG reveals, but I don't know. It's like, you can't tell me that, like, oh, it's fine if we ban Baron de Fleur. Decks like this can just end on, like, Shengyang instead. I've seen more than one person say that, and it's like, are you really trying to tell me that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! You think it's okay to, like, end on Shengyang Pass? It's like, huh? Like, just, I don't know. At that point, just, like, say you want... I guess some people do just say they want every deck to be depowered, but, like, honestly, I'm gonna be real with you, and this is not gonna be something that a lot of people want to hear. The great depowering of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is never going to happen. It's impossible. It cannot happen. There is no way to systematically depower the current format. You would need to make an alternate format, which definitely I think should happen. There should be more than one way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think if there were, then a lot of these issues would be quelled. But, because this is something I've said a lot. I've said that, like, power creep is inevitable and it's going to be part of the game. And I think it's the main argument people have, like, well, this format is maybe diverse, but it's not healthy because everything's way too powerful. And it's like, that's how it is. Like, I don't know what else to tell you except, like if you don't like it, then the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Advanced format is just not maybe something that you're going to enjoy inherently. So, and again, I'm not saying, like, ugh, get good. Like, again, I think there should be alternate formats that people who don't enjoy this kind of thing, which is valid, by the way, to enjoy. But, yeah, so I guess the main point I'm circling back on here is that, like, because this great depowering is never going to happen, like, we should not be taking these generic tools from decks that literally need them to keep up. Like, again, Mannadium is, again, and a lot of this is because it's so expensive, but Mannadium's already a deck that doesn't really see play, right? Like, this deck is not, like, a huge threat on the metagame. Like, this deck having access to Baron de Fleur and Appaloosa is not, like, breaking the format. Oh, but it's the top tier decks having access to those cards. I've seen this argument about Appaloosa a lot in particular, but, like, look at all the top tier meta decks and tell me one besides Yubel, which is actually consistently trying to end on Appaloosa, right? Fire King Snake Eye does sometimes, but let's be real, and a lot of very competitive players know this, you're going to want to make SP in Fire King Snake Eye with the IP, not the Appaloosa, right? Tearlament doesn't play Appo, Pearly doesn't play Appo, Mathmech doesn't play Appo, Cashier doesn't play Appo, Pearly, I already said Pearly, Rescue Ace plays Appo, but like never ever goes into it because they don't need to. What are some other like top tier meta decks right now? I mean, those are really the major ones that I listed right off the top of my head. So, I mean, if you want to go into more niche stuff, like Sprite doesn't make Appo, usually, I don't know. Anyway, my point is, these generic tools are much more of a boon for the lower power decks, like Mannadium, as opposed to like the top tier decks, which is why they should stick around. It is kind of weird to call Mannadium a lower power deck, because it really doesn't feel that way a lot of the time when you play it, but I mean, it does and it doesn't, right? It's one of those decks where, like, when you go off, you, like, really feel like you're playing one of the most powerful decks in the format, but then, I don't know, then your, like, Rimheart gets impermed, and you don't have any follow-up, and you're like, oh, okay, so I just lose now? Cool. This deck is very, very reliant on hard opening your extenders in order to play through hand traps, and there are some hand traps that it just can't play through, namely, of course, that's going to be the Duel and Lockbird. I mean, there are some hands where you can set up like some amount of a board under Duel, but this is very much a turn ender when the Duel gets resolved against you. I guess it is kind of one thing that, to a degree, you could argue keeps Mannadium in check. Like I don't know. I guess I saw this argument about Super Heavy Samurai that like Super Heavy Samurai can only be so good because people can just play stuff like Droll and Shifter to shut it down. And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, like, that was also true of that deck when it was tier 1, and that didn't stop it from being tier 1, so I don't really know how much I buy into that argument. Plus, I don't know, it is kind of also, to an extent, only to a slight extent, but it is also kind of one of those arguments of like, but what if I have hand trap, then can you make plays? And it's like, well, I don't know, it just depends on what's in the rest of my hand. Gotta love it when you're talking about doing a cool play that your deck can do, and the next comment down is like, activate Imperm, response, and it's like, cool, you're very, very cool and smart for pointing that out. We all appreciate how cool and smart you are, thank you. Anyway. Let's see, I feel like I've been doing a lot of ranting as opposed to actually talking about Mannadium. The build is pretty much the same here, especially in the main deck. I did say earlier that, you know, 3 right cards part of the URs, but you could actually only play 2 of this card if you really wanted to, and that's not even necessarily like a budget thing. That is like some builds just only choose to play 2 of this. I like playing 3 because if you open it by itself, it's not full combo, but it is at least like some amount of plays, you know? So I like it for that reason. The extra deck I have changed up a little bit. I'm on the Ice Jade Gamir Agronine, which I crafted for Ice Barrier, but you can also make in this deck as well, relatively easily because the Mannadium Meek is a level 2 tuner. Most notably, I don't have the Excel Synchro Stardust in this version of the extra deck, which normally I like to have played in Mannadium in the past, but I will say it doesn't really come up super often. You just go into the Dissipator via the Crimson Dragon anyway. So that's what I cut out to include the Ice Jade. Granted, the Gamira Agronine didn't really come up in any of my games, but it is nice to be able to have the option to go into it. That said, I don't know, I did go into Excel Stardust a decent bit at the time. It's just one of those cases, I think, where I need to test more with this particular extra deck to really get a feel of which one I think is better, so. Alright, yeah, I think that's pretty much gonna do it. That's everything I have to say about the list here. Is it? Yeah, it is. Cool, let's go ahead and take a look at some games then. So we actually have a series of pretty good back and forth games to watch for this video. They're all above 2 turns. They're also Duelist Cup games as well, of course. And we're going to start by going first in this one here. So this is one of those hands I was actually just talking about where, I mean, we actually have access to Raikar and a rival. So they're going to imperm the Scareclaw Raikar, but because I already have the Arrival in hand, and most notably actually because I already have the second Scareclaw Raikar in hand as well, when I link off for the Lightheart here, I can actually just go for the Visas off the Pearl Rhino here, except I am going to get hit with that Droll and Lockbird I was talking about earlier. So normally, yes, I would love to be able to go into the Visas here and start going into synchro plays, but again, the Droll and Lockbird is going to stop us very, very nicely there. So 2 hand traps are already getting hit with those here, but I can still use the Arrival. You can use that to bring back the Raikart, and then link off these two to go into the SP. So, gonna SP to banish the Duel from their graveyard, set the Imagining just a bit of a bluff, and then pass back over to them to see what they've got here. Alright, it's gonna be Raidraptors, that's right! Okay, so they're, oh god, they're exploding out the gates here, leading with the Balloon Vulture to special itself and Fuzzy Lanius, then going for the Simorg effect to normal summon it, and then they get the effect to add, or to send to add, rather. The Simorg Repulsion. The Simorg Repulsion, what is that doing on? There it is, okay. Just had to wait for it to show up in the log here. Discard a Winged Beast monster, return all cards in your opponent's spell trap zones to the hand, banishes from the graveyard, reveal a Winged Beast in your hand, reduce levels of blah blah. Yeah, I was really hoping they would actually activate this spell to bounce back my face down Imaginings, but I don't think they actually end up doing that. You'll also notice that I'm being very, very patient with the SP Little Knight here. I have not used the effect at all, so I've never actually played against Raidraptors myself. However, I'm still able to use the knowledge that I have about Raidraptors in order to help, you know, me figure out how I'm going to play against them. I know that Raidraptors are a deck based around ranking up with the spell cards, so my plan is to use the SP when they go to activate a card like that. That way, I can hopefully stop them from, well, doing so. Oh wait, actually, I remember, because I have the nib here too. So here they're going to go for the Raiders Knight, and I actually made a bit of a misplay here because I thought I could target this card, but I think it's actually because of one of the Xyz materials why I wasn't able to. Yes, it's the Raiders Wing. So I was going to go for the rank up effect on the Raiders Knight here. However, again, I did misplay, which caused me to unfortunately have to target the Force Strix. Granted, it's not bad to get that off the field because I could still use that as a material for plays here, but what I said earlier is still going to apply because we do have the live nib in our hand. I've been sitting on that as well. I actually forgot about that. So, okay, here's that rank up spell I've been waiting for. This is the Skip Force. So, when they go to activate that, I'm going to drop the nib here. This is kind of like a 2-for-1, right? Because not only are we getting rid of our opponent's monster, but now we've also blanked their rank up spell. The thing is, like, I thought about waiting, but I know that some of the Raidraptors Xyz are unaffected by card effects, and I know the rank 7 isn't one of them, but again, I'm just not super familiar with their combo line, so the way that I'm going to do this here is they don't have a normal summon. I'm going to force them to have, like, probably multiple relevant extenders in their hand, because they don't have anything on board to combo off with, which again, actually did make me glad that I SP'd that Force Strix in the long run there. Thankfully, they do not have any more extenders. They're going to set one card before passing it back over to us. So that's kind of how, because one of the more common questions I get asked is, in terms of improving play, is how do you play against a deck that you're not familiar with? And this is, I think, a really good example of that. And the answer to that question is to just take whatever bits you do know about that deck and try to apply those to how you use your hand traps. Again, I've never played against Raidraptors. I have no idea what their combo line looks like. I only vaguely know what their cards do. And I have a somewhat of an idea of what their end board looks like. But I'm still able to use that limited information I have, right? I think a lot of people get stressed out about, say that 5 times fast, about what they don't know and kind of like worry about it the whole game. But you just gotta focus on what you do know about your opponent's deck and play around that, right? Just keeping your head in the game, I think, is the way to do it. So yeah, there we go. There's us beating up on Raidraptors, which sounds a little bit like bullying when you consider Mannadium versus Raidraptors. But really, I don't know, in terms of like tier or power level, I don't think Mannadium's that much better than Raidraptors, not by that much of a margin at all. And we did have to play through multiple hand traps. We got impermed and drolled, and we were still able to come out on top thanks to our limited interactions, but the interactions that we did have. So, all right, there's our first game. Let's go ahead and check out the next one. Okay, this game I remember I was playing against Lab, because I actually just played this game like half an hour ago, so. Alright, we're going first again. I remember this one, so this one I get to show off a relatively ideal turn 1 combo line. I do make like a minor misplay I'll point out here. So I'm actually going to start by rotating for the Raidraptor and then normal setting that. That might look really weird because you're like, wait, isn't Rimheart the main way you start combo lines? Why wouldn't you want to start by normaling this? Well, it's because Rimheart's got this effect where I can pop one of my Vysis clones, that's what I call monsters, with 1500 attack, 2100 defense, I can pop a Vysis clone to specialist. So if I have access to both Reichardt and Rimheart in my opening hand, I'll often normal summon the Reichardt, because a lot of opponents will just throw the Veilur or Imperm at it, right? Then if they do that, I can pop it with the Rimheart to not only still get the Reichardt Surge, but then special Rimheart and then do that combo line. So it's both baiting and dodging common monster effect negates by doing that. But here my opponent didn't have anything, so after I add the Arrival, I'll just go ahead and pop and then go for the Rimheart here. So Rimheart's going to add the Meek. I then get to special summon the Meek. I love having both Arrivals in hand. Scareclaw Arrival is such a good card in this deck. It's probably your best extender, so... Alright, here I'm going to Trisukta for the Meek, and then go for the, Amritera, right? Yeah, forgot what it was called for a second. Vysis Amritera. Oh, I forgot to point this out. I meant to point this out during the deck profile, but I was too busy ranting. But, I'm actually not on Vysis Samsara in this build. I did ultimately take that card out. Because it's funny, like, that card reads on paper like it should be an insane extender for this deck, but I found after playing multiple seasons with 2 copies in my deck that I just never summon it. It just kind of sits in hand. It doesn't end up doing anything. It ends up actually being a fairly situational card for when it ends up really saving you, and I gotta say, in this play session, I did not miss not having it in my deck here, so a little bit surprising. When that card first came out, I thought it was going to be huge for this deck, but it's very, very optional. Alright, so we're going to link off into Lightheart and go for the Reichphobia. So I misplayed here. I added the Vysis Starfrost off the Reichphobia, but this is the misplay I was talking about at the beginning of the game too. Excuse me. I should have added another Reichardt here, because I thought I was going to have to use the Calarium effects to add a Meek in order to make plays. I totally forgot at this moment that I did already have a Meek in my graveyard, which I can just bring back with Cross Sheep. So I'm missing out on an extra body here. I could have Reichphobia'd for the Reichardt, and then played Calarium over Reichphobia to add the Vysis with that. And then I could have specialed the Reichardt to the zone under Lightheart. So I did miss out on a level 4 non-tuner body this way, which is not ideal, but it's also not like the biggest deal in the world. I'll just use the Calarium to add a Rimheart for follow-up plays instead. Alright, so... Oh, I gotta talk about this sequencing a little bit too, because it looks a little bit weird, and if I wasn't worried about disruption, I could have played it more optimally. However, as I'm doing this combo line, my opponent was constantly getting past priority. That's why I made the Baron de Fleur when I did, because I was like, alright, are they like being greedy and holding a nib? Are they like trying to decide when to Veilur or something? Or the thought did cross my mind, because if your opponent is constantly getting past priority, but they never use a hand trap, one of my first thought is, well, it's probably Lab, and it's like a piece of furniture. Which, spoiler alert, that's actually exactly what it is, so... I can use my other Arrival to bring back the Reichardt, link it off with the Lightheart to go for the Cross Sheep. Now I can set up the Vicious Astrolaud by banishing Samsara and Rimheart. Summon the Astrolaud. I'm going to use the Cross Sheep F to bring back the Meek, as mentioned. I get to use Baron to pop the Meek here, which lets me summon a copy from deck off its own effect, as well as the copy that was popped off the Calarium effect. So there's the level 2 copy. Here's the copy I'm bumping up to 4. Gonna sync it with the Astrolaud. 4 plus 8 is 12. Remember, we did bump up the level of that Meek there, which is why we can go for 12 here. So, gonna use Crimson Dragon to go into the Dispater. Dispater gets to pull the Vysis Starfrost. Jeez, I forgot what it was called for a second. Well, I was mixing it up with Samsara and Amritera. Anyway, we get to pull out the Vysis from the bandage, which not only gives us an extra material to go into the Apo here, but also... now on a follow-up turn, we have it in the yard to go for another Astrolaud. So, pretty typical inboard here. That is going to get hit with the Super Poly! So frustrating when your opponent has Super Poly against a board state like this, but... it is what it is. We do, of course, still have the Veilur Maxi and Dispater for disruption here, so... they actually end up going for the Typhon Sky Crisis, which does make a lot of sense, right? Because if it's Lab, and a lot of their summoning is going to be off the Welcome cards, they're not going to be doing probably much summoning on this turn, so... Gonna use the Typhoon to try to out the Dissipator here, but thankfully we have the Effect Failure to put a stop to that, and now we just threaten to battle over the Typhoon during our turn. So our opponent still has a lot of cards in hand, which is scary, but for the time being, the board state's looking pretty solid. Okay, they're going to use Furniture to pitch Charvara to set the Welcome, Stovey in particular. Charvara gets set Escape, that's whatever, it's probably not going to be live. So 2 other cards, so mainly worried about Welcome and the other 2 back rows there. Again, the Escape is whatever. Top decking another Veiler, going to normal summon the Rimheart first. Rimheart for the Abscission, because really, I didn't even really have that many like good options left in my deck. I pretty much had Abscission, Reframing, Imaginings, which does nothing here, and then Meek, which I don't want to add because I might actually pop, like, summon the one in the graveyard and pop it potentially, so. They're going to Karma Cannon here, which I was a little confused about at first, until they then flipped the big Welcome Lab, and I'm like, oh, okay, so they're gonna lovely pop the face-down Dissipator. Decided to Maxi in response to the big Welcome, just to see if I can find an extender of some kind. End up finding Call By, which isn't an extender, but is not bad, honestly. So, as mentioned before, I'm just going to go for this other Astrolaud, pop the Lovely. As mentioned before, we put back the Visa Samsara with the Payto, which is why we can go for this Astrolaud now. So, gonna set 2, including the Abscission, just for a little bit of a bluff here. Opponent's gonna top deck and then concede, so they were not able to out the Vicious Astrolaud between their 1 leftover face-down card. Well, they had 2, but again, remember, one of them was Escape, which again doesn't really do anything in this situation. So, yeah, between the last card in their hand and their last face-down card that was relevant, it looks like it didn't end up being relevant. They did not have anything to out the Astrolaud. See, that's the thing, right? Like, it's not very often that you have a situation like this, but like, Astrolaud, even though it's pretty much used as an extender, can also just carry in some situations when your opponent's already set up or like going second or something like that. So, very, very good card to have, especially multiple copies of in the extra there. Alright, got one more game to show y'all. Let's finish off with that one. And our final duel is actually going to be our longest one yet. We had 3-4. This one's going to be 5 turns. So, like I said, we got lots of good back and forth games while playing Mannadium here. Looks like my luck has turned around. If you remember at the start of the season, I was losing a lot of coin flips. Like, our first deck profiles at the top of season 33 were all going second games, but we've been winning a lot of coin flops. Coin flops. Anyway, our right card's going to get hit with the Imperm here, but this Arrival in our hand is actually going to be more than enough for extension. I'm going to get to go into the Lightheart off the right card and add the Reichphobia. Now with the Reichphobia, I'm not going to add a Reichheart, but rather the Visas Starfrost. I can use Visas to pop the Lightheart on my field as special from hand. I can then use Lightheart's Graveyard effect to summon. Then I'll use Arrival to bring back the Reichheart. Gonna sink the Starfrost and Reichheart into the Baron de Fleur. And, I don't know, I could have saved the materials for the Astrolaud, but since I already had access to the Lightheart, I figured I'd just use Lightheart plus Astrolaud to end on SP as well here, so yeah, even though we got interrupted by the Imperm there, our end board, our whole situation here is still very formidable. We have SP Baron, Reframing, Veiler Maxi. We have 5 points of total interaction going into our opponent's 5-card hand, which is definitely not too shabby, so alright, opponent's going to normal summon the Ragnaraika, hang on, which one was it there? The Stag Beetle, I think? Hang on. Oh, it was under the Typhoon, right, of course. No, it was the Wicked Butterfly. Normal summon Wicked Butterfly goes straight into the Typhoon. Lots of people are going to try to use Typhoon to out your Mannadium board, because a lot of your big Synchro monsters are going to have 3k or more attack, so. But thankfully, well, of course, they're going to battle over the SP first, which just makes sense. But thankfully, we have the Veiler in hand again, so we're able to, once again, out the Typhoon. Wow, 41.9% play rate on the Veiler is actually really, really high. I don't think the card has been that high before. They're going to try to Call By here, but I'm going to use the Reframing on the Call By, because I really don't want to lose my Baron de Fleur here. It's kind of the only thing I have going for me right now, so we definitely need to make sure this lives. Alright, they're just going to pass right back over to us. Drawing for turn, we do find the Mannadium Meek, but don't really have too much we can do with it just by itself. So I'm going to battle over Typhoon, but main phase 2, I will set the Mannadium Meek. I mainly did this in case I top deck another monster I want to normal. next turn, and then I can combo with it. However, even with what I already have right here, I could actually make plays for my follow-up turn. Like, let's say my opponent doesn't do much and I don't top deck much, I could normal summon Maxi, flip Meek, Barrel into Fleur, pop Meek, summon a Meek from deck as level 4 Meek plus Maxi into the Trisukta, which is generic. Trisukta bring back Meek, go into Amberterra, add stuff, boom, we have plays. So, oh, and also the other reason to set the Meek here, by the way, is that if my opponent starts to out my board and they try to battle over Meek to go for a game, or if they pop it by an effect, try to clear my board to go for a game, I can still just summon more copies of Meek in defense mode to defend myself. So, multiple reasons to want to set it here. So, let's go summon lots of Ragnaraikas. I didn't realize they summoned, that so many of them summoned without starting a chain. Otherwise, I might have considered preemptively maxing, but I'll still do it here in response. That way, I'm not only negating their current board state, but if they want to extend, they're going to have to commit to playing under Maxi. The Maxi there was really to try to scare off my opponent from making plays, but I think they realized that at this point they have to play into the Maxi, otherwise they just lose the duel at this point, right? So, alright, so they're going for Ragnaraika stuff, including the Trap Tricks Murmillo, which one special will pop the Reichphobia, which is not a big deal at all. Alright, so doing some Ragnaraika link climbing here, going for the Mantis Monk. Mantis Monk will add the trap card here, which will be something I have to consider on my turn. It'll let them pop a card. Well, one card for every reptile, insect, or plant link monster they have the end on. Alright, Mantis Monk plus Skeletal Soldier is going to be the Link 5 Stag Sovereign. That's the one that if I summon from deck or extra deck, they can pop exactly two monsters on the field. Alright, so setting the trap card, drawing one off the butterfly, passing to me. Yeah, our hand situation is looking great. I throw down the Calarium, they immediately ash it, completely fine. I already have access to literally everything I need, so I did not need that search at all. I'm going to triple attack here to force the face down Hunting Grounds, or Hunting Dance rather, because obviously if I take their Ragnaraika monster, then they're not going to be able to use a trap card. So, of course, I'm not just forcing that, I am also just taking their Ragnaraika monster in order to OTK them with it. So, yeah, from here it doesn't really matter what I do, because they don't have any, like, relevant graveyard effects here, so I'm just climbing up to 8k damage at this point. Well, 7,900 technically. I was at 78 here. Like, if this were 79, I would have just swung in for lethal and not wasted too much more time, but gotta find that lethal. I'm gonna go for the Chaos Angel here, banish their continuous spell. And there we go, now we have 8,300, so we'll swing in. Alright, there it is. Thanks everybody for watching these duels. I did cover pretty much every, because I like to cover a lot of the more, I guess, main or what I consider to be more competitive decks where I do more fun stuff. So, because I know I've been talking a lot about doing pile decks. I do still want to do that, but I wanted to cover like all the decks I'd already built for this season first. So now that's done. 15 different decks, by the way, we've covered this season, which is not atypical, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I should have some time now to sit down and start working on some piles. So look forward to that. But thanks as always for watching, especially at the end. Super appreciate you. Let's go ahead and move on to that outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Just want to give you a huge thanks for watching all the way to the very end of the video. Believe it or not, that is actually one of the best ways that you can support the channel, is by watching the videos in their entirety. But there are many ways in which you can support the channel if you are so interested. The names that you're seeing on screen here, I gotta give an extra special thanks to, because these are people who have chosen to either become a member on YouTube, which if you're interested you can do as well via the join button next to the subscribe button down there, or have signed up over on Patreon and become members there. Link to that is going to be in the description below. Without the support that is being offered by, again, all the people that you're seeing on screen right here, I would not be able to take the time to dedicate to uploading daily YouTube videos. So thank you so very much. But there are also other ways you can support as well. Again, link to the description below. If you like my deck tracker that you'll see in a lot of my videos, the Untapped Companion, you can download download that for free, and if you use my affiliate link down there, then that also goes a long way towards supporting the channel. That's, again, free. So is subscribing here on YouTube. That's also free and a huge way to support. You can also check out Twitch, once again linked in the description below. Following and subscribing over there will not only support as well, but also give you notifications of when I go live if you want to catch some of the live streams. But really, no matter how you choose to support, it all adds up and it all definitely means the world. So thank you, each and every one of you. For now, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out. But more than that, I'm hoping that you have a fantastic day.